In this video, we're going to concentrate on the modulation section of Alchemy. One great feature of Alchemy is every single control is able to be modulated with an unlimited number of LFOs, envelope generators, sequencers, and morphs. This means that every parameter can have a number of unique modulation sources independent of one another. This type of flexibility is one of the many reasons Alchemy is such a powerful synthesizer. In order to set modulation sources and destinations, we must select a parameter we wish to modulate. Once a parameter is selected, the drop-down menus in Alchemy's modulation section reset to display the individual modulation paths for that given parameter. Let's start with modulating the pitch of sound source A. Let's designate an LFO to modulate our coarse tune. I'm going to roll the depth back quite a bit since it's a dramatic parameter to modulate, and I'm going to slow the LFO rate down. As you can see, the LFO is synced to our session, so the modulation will happen on beats. I'll slow the LFO down to 4 beats. Next, let's set a separate LFO to modulate the grain size. We do this by selecting the grain size parameter and adding a new LFO to modulate it. Let's set this LFO to a ramp up shape and set its rate to 1 beat. Lastly, let's lower its depth a bit. Now let's concentrate on sound source B and add an envelope generator to some of its parameters. First, I'm going to select the grain density control and set a new envelope to control it. I'm going to set a fairly long attack and decay with a low sustain so the sound will evolve over time. Next, let's set a new envelope to control the R-time parameter of sound source B. Again, I'll slow down the attack and decay and set a low sustain point. This sounds good, but I'm going to add a third sound source to help balance everything out. I'm going to select the analog saw sample and start messing with its grain size and density. Let's lower the grain size and raise the density. I'm going to set a new LFO to adjust the stretch parameter. After selecting the stretch parameter, I'll insert a new LFO and slow its rate down to 8 beats. I'm going to leave the LFO depth to maximum. This sounds pretty good and highlights a lot of the in-depth granular tweaking that can be done inside of Alchemy. Alchemy also offers a lot of fantastic parameters that aren't necessarily granular in nature. I'm going to just take a short amount of time to highlight some of these parameters. First, we can see that Alchemy offers a fairly in-depth filter which features a ton of musical filter shapes. Obviously, we can adjust the cutoff and resonance parameters as well as set modulation sources for each parameter. Next, we can set any number of sequencers to modulate any parameter. Let's select the filter cutoff frequency and set a sequencer to modulate it. I'll slow the sequencer down to quarter notes and adjust each step mounts. Finally, I'll add some Portamento into the mix. As you can see, Alchemy is not only a powerful granular synthesizer, but an extremely powerful overall synthesizer. I'm excited to see what Apple does with it in the future.